Hello and welcome to this very special conversation today. CX Conversations Navigating Today's Challenges. It's a virtual world, and we're reaching out to you through this virtual world virtually as we always have been, and we've been talking regularly with you. So today, as we speak about this, something very important because the world is going digital and it's the virtual consumer that everyone wants to focus on. So, what does it take for companies to go for the consumer who's ready to engage with brands and perhaps also spend some money online? It's not just about spending money, it's also the engagement that you're looking forward to. How does it change the landscape and open up opportunities for brands, for companies, for newer brands to emerge as well? And what could companies do to ride this wave and ride this opportunity that presents itself? Can we pick up some secular trends and talk about that as well? We'll be talking about all of that as we go along, and I have a very eminent panel to talk about that. Let me introduce first the panel and then we'll move on to the details. Shashi Kumar, co-founder and CEO of Akshay Kalpa. Rahul Gupta, Director of Product Management at Jubilant Foodworks. Vanita Keswani, she's CEO at Madison Media Sigma. Dhruv Dhanraj Bahal, he's CEO at BharatPe. K.T. Prasad, Managing Director and RVP India and SARC at Zendesk. And Preeti Kumar, Founder and Director, Padah Solutions. My name is Ashutosh Sinha, and I will be your host for today. But before we move on, let's first start with a context where I would essentially want K.T. Prasad to set the context for the entire conversation so that we move ahead with that. Prasad, it's over to you.
Thank you, Ashutosh. Thanks, ET. Thanks for those who have joined us live today, and for those who want to watch this later. I want to thank you first of all. I think 2020 and 2021, everything has changed, especially for customers, businesses, you name it, everything has changed, including the context of today is a customer experience. I think that expectations and experience levels are also changed quite drastically. With most of us stuck at home, especially in the first lockdown, figuring out how businesses survive and moving employees remote, and also those people who are sitting in the contact center, figuring out getting them to move to remote and getting them to help customers. I think most customers like me and all of you are all flogged online. We figured out how do we get our food ordered and groceries ordered, anything and everything else to be online because that's the most safest viable option. That means support agents, especially those contact center agents, have to move overnight. Those people who used to talk to their friends and colleagues next door and getting some help now is moved remote. Companies, I would say, still evolving, and businesses still evolving and scrambling on how do we get things moving. And I think we wave 2, and now it's wave 2 looks like almost behind us, and probably wave 3 is maybe ahead of us. We don't know. I think we're coming to more of uncertain world. But one thing is very certain in the uncertainty. I think the world is moved towards more of digital first. It doesn't matter which industry that you are part of. I think every industry, every business, he has moved and made digital first as a journey, including employees. I think today it opened up the employment. I think all of us are lucky enough to employ people from wherever they're in the corner. They don't need to be in a particular city to hire. I think it gave all of us some options. But your company success, I think in the last 18 months is very clearly determined by what kind of experience that you deliver to customer. That really is a pivot. It doesn't matter whether you are low priced or if you probably offer something in cashbacks, but if the customers don't have a good experience, they would probably go to some places where they can trust and get a better buck for them. 75% of customers think about CX, this is across the country, before they make a purchase. I think that stat really clearly says that we got to be moving towards experience of our economy. I think, like I said, I made two things. One, the world is moving towards digital, and I think we will call that as digital first world. Second, I think the experience economy, which was there in the West world, has officially arrived in India. and the content. But I think in this world, if you're in the business and if you want to look at how the customer trends are shaping up in 2021 and beyond, I would want to talk about, of course, there are multiple trends, but I want to talk about two things which actually picks up on top of my mind. Number one, messaging. This is where this is a global trend, but we're seeing it in India. And I'm from Karnataka, I'm from Bangalore, especially in the COVID first wave hit. The local Karnataka government said, you know what, if people wanted to get the groceries delivered, you could WhatsApp the local government and they will help us to deliver it. Imagine WhatsApp was one of the channels that we used to use for talking to friends and family, all of a sudden become very important, integral part of business communication. I think if you go back and look at, there are about 93% of Indians in the last 18 months have used at least one new support channel of engaging. I think telephone lines are very popular, chat, automatic bot, or WhatsApp, SMS, the so on and so forth, the plethora that has come in. But I think today's customer wanted to have a conversation with business. That means if I might start my conversation probably on a WhatsApp, but tomorrow I call you for following up that particular request that I made, the customer expectation is that you as business understand what I've done already and have a continuity. I think the omni channel is still really arrived and customer feel relevant. And second, which I want to talk for emphasis today, I think a key thing about being agile, because we are in an uncertain world, being agile and being nimble will be the key success mantra for us to strive. But I think these two things that we see coming a very big way. But we can talk about plenty of other things. But remember, if you invest in technology that supports your CX goals and you drive a great CX, I think you're not going to be business just for today, but also for tomorrow. With that, I want to thank Ashutosh and ET for giving me this opportunity for opening remarks. Ashutosh, over to you. You're on mute, Ashutosh.
Thanks so much, Katie, Prasad, for the introductory remarks. Now, let me start first with what I typically like to call the oxygen for business. And Dhruv, you guys move everything. You guys enable everything. Of course, tech does that part, but really the oxygen drives it. The reason why I would want to get you first is how much of a change are you seeing, if you can explain it in scale, over the last 18 months or so, which makes it so important for companies to probably ride this wave, and somebody who's left behind, if they can also join the wave.
Okay. So when you say oxygen, my mind goes back to the core of our business, right, which is lending. Let me use that as an example to sort of highlight how transformation has happened in the past, right? Let's take the example of the first wave, right, or the first lockdown. Overnight, the government announces we're going to be locking down for 21 days. What's the first thing that happens? Everyone rushes to their local Kirana store and stocks up. Overnight, everyone is out. 2 days later, government comes out with a warning saying, Kirana stores, don't need to, well, not a warning, but a guidance saying, Kirana stores don't need to be shut. You will be open. You are essential services. You and banks will be open. Everything is fine. What's the two big transformations that happened in that time that we saw, right? One, people didn't go to the bank. They were scared to go to the bank. There wasn't an incidence of cases, but people weren't going to the bank. And people weren't using their cards, weren't using cash. There was no ATM usage. Something like 30% of all ATMs in the country have shut down now because it's just not possible to maintain them. That's a stat that I read from, a big consulting firm's report recently. People have, disputed it, but it's true. Now, what happened then was you suddenly saw digital payments take off, right? You saw signups go through the roof. You started seeing people's first interaction with digital financial services being the ability to trust and say, without a form factor of a money or a card or a receipt, I will pay someone and the person will say, yes, sir, I've got the money. Here are your goods. So that became the first interaction of people with digital signups, and for that you had to do KYC, for that you had to do signups, for that you had to link your bank account. You had to build some trust. So that trust came through this full experience of people using it. The second thing that we saw around that time was a lot of these shops started coming back and saying, we had shopkeepers coming and standing outside our office. We were open the entire time. We were allowed by the government and the RBI. We was taking precautions, but we were in office at that time. We had people coming and lining out outside our office, and our office is actually located next to two large hypermarkets. So we had people lining up, 6 feet away, trying to get ration, but we had people lining up outside our office. And we said, "Why are you here?" They're like, "Sir, you have to understand, we are only designed to cater to 30% of people's eating needs. Everyone's eating out nowadays. Now suddenly restaurants, roadside kiosks, everything is shut. A 500 rupees spent at a kirana store has now become 4,000 rupees. We've run out of mal. We don't know how to, keep things in the shop. So what do you need? We need working capital loans. And we need that loan right now, but a traditional bank is not going to give it to us for XYZ reason various. So what you really saw was a lot of these people voluntarily entering the formal economy and trusting it on a digital first scale. So they weren't going to their matka walas, they weren't going to their local bhai khata guys who would basically maintain their khatas and basis that give them some sort of working capital loan. They were coming to us. Now fast forward that to a year and a half later, nothing has slowed down. Every time there has been a lockdown, every time there has been a wave, it's been a blip on the radar, but it has only reinforced people's beliefs saying it's better to do it the digital way than to actually do it the physical way. Right now, if I start putting dollar and billion-dollar values to it, it might confuse people a little bit. But just look at something like the POS machine business. Yeah, sure, the PVRs, the cinema halls, or the restaurants are shut, but it's still a $10 billion. In March of this year, it was a $10 billion monthly TPV industry growing at a 17-18% month-on-month clip rate. So people are not just adopting cashless methods, but they're also sort of now beginning to move earnings into that sort of space. So the way we look at it is things are moving in that direction, but it's still very early stages. We see the peaks are still far away, and things are only going to grow. So as that digital first continues, what is going to happen is people are going to use the transaction product first, but then they're going to live on your platform online for a while. So things will move beyond one transaction to multiple interactions, services on the platform digitally, and that's when the journey starts getting deeper. And I think that's what Katie was talking about. And I think that's something that we can go deeper in later.
Yeah, surely. So one example of that, I think let's go across to Shashi Kumar, because I'm sure you have, Shashi Kumar, several examples of people who may have such stories, people who were not part of the formal economy or the structured economy, and they have gone ahead with digital transactions. Can you give us a story or two, perhaps, which explains the scale?
Ashutosh, thank you for the prompt. See, one aspect last 1.5 to 2 years, I believe it has changed, is how the farmers would do their business. Okay, we work with a lot of farmers, and at the pandemic situation, what we did was there are a lot of challenges at the farming side. One is, of course, we engage farmers on the dairy business side, and they do have a lot of commitments on the other side. When this pandemic hit, actually, they couldn't bear the 15 days settlement cycles which we used to manage. So what we did was, we did daily settlement cycles of your first time in the country. So we did a daily settlement cycles to the farmer accounts. I think you could see, okay, the kind of impact it created, okay, and though it was situation forced us to do that, but the kind of impact it created on the farmer's side. Hey, daily 2,000, 3,000 rupees is hitting my account, okay, for my produce, which was picked up in the morning, and within 30 minutes, okay, it hits the cloud, I think settlement is done. So that's where I see, okay, the economy is heading towards. These farmers are I think, the last, okay, adapters of technology like this, okay. And I clearly see there is a huge traction, especially on the farming side of the business, where they're using digital transactions, and their experience of using digital transactions, and even transactions which we enable through bulk uploads, and further they using that one to get services. Go to, let me say, a person who gives them a feed and fodder. They pay through online transactions. That has really shot up. This is one example where I believe that adoption rate, especially at the farmers, and farming side, is really gone up. The second part, what I see is the impact, is that you can ask, can you do a daily settlement, if your market is not responding. So what has happened is, my direct to customer business, has really gone above the roof. Now what has happened is, I hold around 20 to 25 days, money in advance. So from the consumers who are taking our products, I should not see any problem on settling, the farmer on the same day when my I got a working capital negative cycles. So this is where I believe, two sides of the story, where the direct to customer business, which is digitally enabled and wallet based, works. So for example, our app platform, we deliver around 22,000 consumers every day, and all the consumers pay in advance. So therefore, even we can with that one we can settle farmers in advance. So these are some of the two cases, Ashutosh. I believe it has substantially pushed some of the experience part of handling money. Yeah.
Okay, Rahul, people are so used to in large cities having a pizza, and of course not just the pizza. I mean, there are several other products that you said. The Choco Lava cake is a perpetual hit in so many homes. So many kids love it. How does that experience? How did that experience change for Domino's? And more so because Domino's was known a lot about people calling in and the products being delivered. And in the last 18 months, what's been the change for you?
I think, thanks, Ashutosh. So I would say it has been a drastic change in the consumer behavior. So at Jubilant, we were, able to identify that change, early on. And we knew that, once lockdown is over, the dine-in business is going to go down drastically, because even if there is no lockdown, there are no restrictions, people are not going to just walk into the restaurants and start eating again, right? So we started building our delivery capabilities early on, during the lockdown period, because we knew that once the lockdown is over, more and more customers would shift to the digital way of ordering, right, instead of dining in. And similarly, our call centers were shut down because there were no guy who can manage that call center. So, early on, we started revamping our delivery network. That was, one big call that we took. Another thing that we envisaged was that, okay, people might not go for dine-in, but what about those guys who want to eat out? Yeah, but still they are, afraid of health, hygiene, or safety. So we were, an early mover in identifying a new ordering channel, which is drive and pick. So through drive and pick, we came up with the concept that, okay, you come to the restaurant, but you stay in your car and your pizza would get delivered in your car itself. You don't have to move out in a pure, contactless, cashless manner. So, with the help of these, new ordering channels, revamping our delivery and the network capabilities, we were able to, ride over the dip in the business, in the dine-in. So I would say that, yes, customer habits were changing, and we were early to spot on that. And we quickly build digital solutions to, grab the opportunity and that thing.
Vanita, how did this?
Before you asked me, I was about to just button to say that.
Sure.
Can I actually talk a little bit about how all of you are talking about how much digitization has happened, and how has all of this impacted media, and obviously digital is so big now in terms of
my question.
So I'd just like to touch upon the fact that 2020 was a year where AdEx, which is ad expenditure, degrew at an overall level as much as about 20%, and digital was the only medium, so to say, which did not degrow. So I think every other medium was about and the range was very high, right? Because it was as low as 10% degrowth to as high as 80% degrowth, obviously because cinema was shut, out of home was shut. So we saw that digital has grown. That's the first point, that obviously that's the impact that it had. The other point that I would like to make is the categories, the top categories that spenders, like we've always seen only FMCGs, auto, telecom, etc. We saw a surge in almost about 30% growth in e-com as a category. And we saw also at the back of ed tech, education growing at a huge rate. So today we know these are just some of the top pointers. I thought that'll set the context in terms of how advertising in media has changed.
Mhm. Also,
scenario. Yeah.
Yeah. So, just to take that point ahead, while that gave you the trend, also because what we heard from Rahul and Shashikumar, they were examples of retail customers. How did brands change? While you spoke about the numbers in terms of the trends, how did the brands adopt and adapt?
So so the brands like QSR category, like you heard just now, a lot of fresh communication and approach was given in terms of the way they came to focus on dine-in versus delivery, for example. Similarly, FMCGs wanted to speak some new communication. But there were a lot of challenges because I think in between there was production that was shut in COVID. So people could not make TVCs, which despite wanting to create new communication. That was a strange and unique, issue that one faced. But I think a lot of companies also launched a lot of products. Like almost every company launched a COVID related product. A lot of pharma companies went into masks and other PPE gears, etc. So that is the way they all looked at it. And a lot of it, the other thing that changed is that everybody wanted to look at performance marketing. So the way we look at Madison is we have a outcome planning framework for deciding how the consumer journey is. So how do we really look at the consumer experience? So it starts with something what we call as encounter, which is nothing but kind of seeing a brand or being aware at the first stage. It moves on to explore, experience, buy, and share. So these are the journeys that we see. And typically 80% plus of advertising expenditure has always been on encounter in the past. And suddenly we saw brands looking at, one is within encounter, how can we digitize and how can we experiential, change the dynamic and agile media plans, but how can we really tap into the experience aspect and buy aspect? So typically we all saw a trend moving on to performance marketing increasing, a trend moving on to also the way they looked at agency partners. So we saw a lot of cohesion happening where brands came to us saying we want a single agency to kind of work together, because you can't have digital branding and a digital performance separately. So you saw a lot of such trends also being happening by brands overall.
Mm-hmm.
To Vinita's point, we were one of the few companies that actually did TVCs during lockdown. So we actually onboarded 11 cricketers during the lockdown, and we actually did our TVCs. and yeah, it was a challenge, Vinita.
It was a huge challenge.
It was literally like RT-PCR tests before, after, bubbles. Everything was on green screen. You could not, another person couldn't come within 6 feet of the cricketer. But to your point, like I think a single impact, like everyone's now rewriting that playbook, right? I think what Vinita said is really pertinent. At least we see it from a brand that's trying to embrace, like we are technically merchant focused. We like to believe we are B2C and merchant is the customer, but everyone terms us as B2B, right? And then for us to come up with TVCs and do billboards is very confusing, because we end up by mistake even acquiring normal consumers, and then they say, oh shit, it's a customer platform, go there. But to that point, right? The playbook is now changed, Ashutosh. It's now having to be rewritten, and I'm sure Vinita's at the forefront of that. So she's also now coming up with newer sort of frameworks and heuristics that will help companies adapt to things, right? One of the points that we have seen is what I spoke about earlier with you guys, right? Is the profile of customers have changed. People who were not digital before are now digital. We have access to their phones. By virtue of that, we have access to their behaviors. And when we have access to their behavior, as we underwrite them, we realize they don't fit into any of the previous models we've created. So now we need to go back and relook at our playbook. And now we're trying to bring, people with sort of industry experience like Vinita in and advise us and tell us, what works, what doesn't work. And there are some of them are, beautifully very honest, and they say, "Hame bhi nahi pata," but let's figure it out together, right? And then so we're doing a bunch of A/B testing, we're doing a bunch of experiments. Recently we realized people now pay more attention to their push notifications than they earlier did. So now suddenly the whole idea that a push is just an English message sent out versus it's slightly more, has more graphic attached to it. It's a little more exciting. It has regional languages being used to target people, has changed the mobile first approach as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'd like to add this regional bit that he spoke about. I think regionalization is already was there a trend. The good thing on COVID has been that it picked up certain trends and it just accelerated them, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, regionalization is one of them. I think you just touched upon it. So even right from even consumer research, brands are also looking at vernacular ways of digital research because consumer research itself is changing. So that's another one thing that I'd like to highlight. And of course, vernacular has really become big, huge. Regionalization, right from television to digital to every place is like really, really big. Influencers, micro influencers versus, having those large celebrities again has been a trend that has been. So these are some of the newer things that I could think of. Yeah.
Okay, let's get Preeti in. Preeti, the tech companies love such trends where you have multiple trends trying to get in, and of course the digital first and the mobile first approach across industries. So probably if it was confined to a few industries, maybe financial services or XYZ, it's now going cuts across. What is that few? What are some of those big changes that have happened in the CX part of it, which can tell brands you need to ride this wave?
Thanks, Ashutosh. I've been hearing everybody, and everyone is talking about, we are talking about the platform and how do we get new customers? How do we hold them? How do we continue the business? With using the technology, I have observed that there are multiple industries, especially the industries which have been traditional industries like manufacturing, where you already have loyal customers base. We all are, when we are consumers, right, to your electronics or your brands or your day-to-day use, we all are loyal to certain brands. Maximum population is loyal to certain brand. What we observe that these loyal customers want to go back to their brands and go and shop, go and connect. But unfortunately, there have been these industries who have not been prepared for these kind of connections or conversations with their customers, right? They have been typically prepared for the physical footfalls or the chains that we talk about. But always, as we say, right, that, you always get new customers, you should get more new customers. But what about what you already have? Are you prepared to even hold them? So if you don't understand the importance of digital platform in this last 18 months, what we observed is that whatever was a wish has turned into a need. It has, if you need to be in continuation to your business, if you need to continue with the loyal set of customers and then add more, getting digitization is a necessity. It's not tomorrow, it has to be today. Then when the same set of customers who are not physically able to walk into your stores or chains or setups or banks or branches, wherever it is, right, you need to still give them that same comfort by which they are loyal and they continue to be. And in that context, if you see, as the theme says, right, the conversations become very, very important part when you are dealing with your consumers. And like as Shashi mentioned, Akshay Kalp was an e-com brand, right? But for us to get delivered at home, it's just not the product that gets delivered at home. There is a whole mechanism that works at the back end, which makes that product deliver. So it's very important for all these organizations to understand the importance of not only digitization of the platform, getting conversations with your customers, making a very critical point, because if they don't get that comfort, there are so many options today, and generation doesn't have patience. Always have options. It's earlier the brands realize it, it's better. That's what we have observed. Being a very new player as an entrepreneur in this journey, but I come from this industry, I have seen this, and it's unfortunate that, you know, all the new blood, new generation, everybody who's ready to change is adapting and making the most of it. Who is not, you just lose, you know, you're just losing the opportunity. So, and that trend, and we are working, and we have been able to grow in this market. As Katie mentioned, right? We are employed, we are able to employ, we are able to sustain. You know, we are not a funded company. We are working with the biggest of the enterprises today. We are planning, and we are walking the path with them, right? It's because not only what we do, it's about how we do it. And then it's really important how they realize that it's a necessity. It's not a wish.
Okay, so necessity is a very important word that you mentioned. For a brand like Jubilant FoodWorks to change, you know, from the way they operated, Rahul, if I can ask you, how did you figure out, or what was that tipping point which made you realize that, you know, the business needed to get ready for, of course, the lockdown, very obviously, yes, but, you know, get ready for some of the bigger scale virtual customer conversations. So obviously there would have been a dip after that lockdown, but there would be some tipping point where you said, okay, we need to now go whole hog and do this in a digital format. Rahul.
Yeah. See, so you're right. You know, it's not just during the lockdown that we realized that we have to ramp up our digital capabilities by many folds. But even before that, the organization realized that, you know, in the current ecosystem wherein any you know, restaurant on the street can get online with the help of, you know, various food aggregators who are running the show in the country, and can start selling the food online the very next day, right? So Jubilant realized that, you know, if we have to maintain our edge, our, you know, our brand, and, you know, have to grow no matter, you know, who your competitor is and how soon he is able to sell online, we have to maintain that competitive edge. And I think the digital journey started probably, I would say 1.5 to 2 years back, when the organization decided that, yes, we have to kind of invest heavily into our own digital capabilities. That's where, you know, you would find a huge, big tech and product team, a huge data science team, and, you know, analytics and the user experience team. And this is a complete in-house team, nothing is outsourced, right? Because the idea was that, you know, if we have to build a brand that has to go a long way, we have to own everything. So even today, you would find that even if you go and order from, say, you know, the various aggregators in the country, the delivery is done by Jubilant. The delivery is not outsourced, because we control the whole, you know, end-to-end user experience. So we want to be the touch point, the face with the customer. So, you know, so we started investing heavily into the tech. Say, for example, the chatbots were introduced a long time back. And apart from that, you know, the various digital interventions, like how do you make sure that, you know, a customer sees a seamless tracking of the product being delivered to him. Yeah, how can we give that crisp communication that, you know, the product is absolutely safe and has been made in a pure hygienic manner, right? So giving that trust factor to the user, to your customers, and in a pure digital manner was something, you know, which organization realized early on. So I would say the tipping point was, there was no tipping point. It's just that, you know, we were able to identify that to sustain our edge, we have to be, you know, ahead of the curve, ahead of the competition all the time. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Prasad, you wanted to say something?
Ashutosh, if you don't mind, I think the Rahul brought up a very important point of competition, and this is going in my mind from few months. You know, if you look at in the market, you know, for a moment, let's talk industry agnostic for a moment, and probably a good probing question to everybody who's actually listening today. What are the key differences that you can create for your product or services that you can compete in? Earlier, pre-COVID, price, India is a, you know, perceived as a very price sensitive market. Nothing is important, nothing more important than pricing. You get a pricing right, you get everything right. I think that is being challenged today. And I want people to go back and reflect upon. And in the recent past, I've been watching some TV ads, and we're talking about either a large insurance company or it's a large retail company, fashion merchant company, talking about how good their experience is. What is the customer CSAT that they got? How easy is to return? How easy is the support? I think everybody knows that the products would be more or less are going to be the same. And customers do get it. But I think what customers really want to be glued on to the experience. I think Preeti touched upon, I think every panelist touched upon. I think the way to build loyalty, I think even Rahul touched on, loyalty today cannot be probably purely depends on the product itself. I think a huge influencer is what is the experience that the customers get when they interact with you or when they have an issue with you. Because today, remember, this digitally enabled consumers have bigger voices. Earlier, they used to write letters. I'm talking about old age. Then they used to write emails. Then you have a contact center to call. Nobody cares a damn about whether you complained. Anybody received it. But today, all the consumers have powerful voice of social media. They can voice their opinion on Twitter. And I can guarantee you, if you're a business that you join today, and if you're a B2C business, mostly, you would have had a Twitter handle monitoring, and your tag, which is turnaround time for Twitter, will be in minutes versus a turnaround time for a call, which is coming up for a complaint, which will be a lot longer. Because socially, if your brand gets taken for tarnishing and if the brand reputation goes for a toss, then you will have disloyal customers, and you will have degradation of a brand, which is very, very important, right? That means it is so important to deliver that experience when customer need it. And I want to talk about one more thing, which is actually what earlier people used to call, especially countries when they look at India. India is a very cash economy. Digital will not pick up. There are a lot of cash, and cash is the king, right? So we use that word, cash is the king. But I think today Drew talked about it. And if you look at the recent UPI report and how UPI transactions went up to the roof thanks to pandemic, I think we're no more the biggest cash economy. Of course, the cash is very big. The number of populations is large, but the digital adoption is at a skyrocket pace. So if you're a business and if you think that, the pandemic will go away and probably my customers will walk into my store, maybe I'm deep pocketed today. I think I want to tell them that probably you're living in an ivory world, because the consumer today is getting used to digital first, virtual every day. So they would want to get that digital experience today. And if you can give them a great experience, you drive loyalty. So experience driving loyalty, not the pricing. And if the loyal customer will go back and tell you, 5 friends, which is evangelizing, which is exactly what we want, right? We want those loyal customers to go evangelize, bring more people to do business with you, which will increase your bottom line. But end of the day, what seems very clear, experience drives, everything else now. Looks like that is a pivot. And the proof is in the pudding with some of the brands nowadays marketing themselves as the great experience companies that they deliver. And those are the 2 things that I thought I'll
so the experience economy, as you referred to.
Absolutely.
So imagine if farmers, if people in rural areas are also doing this, as Shashi Kumar was saying. Shashi Kumar, could they be the benchmarks of loyalty? Because, it just reminds me of what I'd heard some years ago of, one of the FMCG brands running something called Kaan Khajura Tesan. I don't know if you've heard of that, where they actually reached out to media dark areas and they could convert people very easily. Here, farmers, what he told us, farmers were able to use digital platforms and digital services. Could that be driving loyalty in areas where there is lesser competition? Shashi Kumar.
Yes, I think a very valid point. Dhruv also, I think, brought this one up. What we have seen is, even if you take a daily settlement system, the loyalty aspect, the experience part has really gone up. So daily you got cash on hand, and you have got a liberty to spend, on your daily needs. And experience aspect with that one actually really goes up. So just a digital payment aspect, if you can see, other forward transactions he does, he pays for his education, son's education, or let me say medical bill, okay, or let me say local grocery store, okay, or feed and fodder purchasing, everything happening digitally, the loyalty part, okay, of the farmer in our case actually really gone up. If you go and talk to the let me say farmer now, as against probably 2 years back, and say, hey, how is your experience right now? Okay, probably even some players, even if they offer better prices for their produce, no farmer is willing to make a switch. So that is absolutely right that these kind of digital services, payments is one part of it, in my opinion. There are other digital services. For example, we have digitized entire herd, basically entire cow management system we digitized. And every month, the farmer gets a MIS of his farm. Okay, that in itself, okay, has enabled farmer to look at the digitization very, very differently. He never had a MIS of the farm. Okay, how many cows, how much productivity, what is the insemination records, okay, how the calf weight is going up, okay, what is the productivity, are you making money or not? If that's the kind of MISs that digitization can push, so his experience part goes up, his understanding of his own business actually goes up. So that's what I believe. Payment is one part, and there are other aspects where digitization bring up, okay, it enables, okay, better services to be delivered.
What an example. Imagine a cow management system having all those details. Wow, this just reminds me again. Again, this is slightly old. Again, I've heard of this. I never interacted, but Gurdwaras in Delhi, they were on an ERP some 20 years ago. So just imagine what kind of applications people are looking. Dhruv, because you deal with so many huge number of customers, can you probably fish out some examples where loyalty is now the driving factor and making people stick to the platform? And can you give some examples of that?
Sure. So I'll give you an example, and then I'll give you our take on what we think loyalty is, right? And we recently bought Payback as a company, so you can definitely know that we believe in loyalty, and we're chasing it with both our hands, right? Let me talk about something that's transformative that has happened recently, right? Traditional underwriting required you in loan. Again, I'll go back to our core lending, and I'll tie it back to payments as Shashi was talking about, right? Required people to do what is called static underwriting. How much money do you have in the bank? How many FDs, how many deposits, what does your balance sheet look like? Your personal balance sheet look like, and your loan would be determined on that at a point in time, right? And you could have had a lot of money, but if you spent it and then you periodically got, none of that mattered. The day you applied for the loan, what did your personal P&L look like? Now, when we started BharatPe, we realized that that's actually broken. That's a broken form of underwriting, because majority of the country actually, I won't say lives hand to mouth, but lives, with inflows and outflows interspersed with each other, right? Now, when you look at something like that, we actually rewrote the framework of underwriting into something called velocity-based underwriting, which means it was more about payments, right? And that's one of the reasons we started giving payments at 0% MDR, no charge payments. Why? Because if we charged, then we are a payments company. But if we didn't charge, we are actually we're not a payments company. We are a data science company. We start using those payments as data. And that data starts then talking about things like, okay, not just where you live, what shop you run, what do you do, but how frequently do you accept payments? From whom do you accept payments? What is the repeat nature of those payments? Is it predictable? Does it come in the same time? Where do you use your app? Are you easily locatable as a customer, as a merchant? Can we find you at places? And as we started factoring in loyalty, we started seeing that we actually got better quality merchants. So loyalty actually formed, the merchant's loyalty formed a great underwriting signal for us to actually extend working capital to these people. For those people to whom we did extend unsecured loans and or working capital loans, we saw that businesses grow much more, because the same people who were coming back, they knew their needs and they were able to add more and more and more and more products and services within their shop. So kirana store could now also have, earlier only had khule chawal or dal lying in a big sack outside, but now could bring you the branded MTRs or MDH masalas and products. They earlier did, local artisan cookies. Now they could do, bonbons and Oreos and get into, and that they had the capital to pay up front to big companies, the big FMCG companies, to get those products in. That one aspect of loyalty fundamentally had nothing to do with us, but changed it. And because they saw that, they started telling their people they push the QR up front, they push their swipe machines up front and started saying, please accept on this, right? Now you take it a little deeper, right? Now you talk about this merchant, how sticky are they with us and why should they stay with us? And I think it comes back to simply two tenets, right? Trust and simplicity. Right. So a lot of people talk about trust and simplicity, but I think simplicity of product is what drives loyalty at the end of the day. Right. Now, one of the things, and when our ethos, when we bought Payback, is, I don't know how many of you are, let's say, a Payback customer because you are with a banking partner who gives Payback loyalty points. There are so many places that you can use it, right? But what will supercharge that loyalty is when one day when you walk in to a store and you see a BharatPe QR and you know that you can just open up your app and scan your loyalty points and buy products and goods with that because there's a monetary value attached to it. And then the upstream effect of loyalty will kick in, right? People will start driving more and more loyalty programs. So I think, so I think there's a very simple way to look at it is value and convenience. It's a 2x2. In life, we've always looked at value. Is there ROI? Is there monetization? We have never ascribed, as a country, as a people, we've never ascribed value to convenience. I think the last 2 years has changed that. We have started thinking of convenience as a monetary value, right? So somewhere there is while the dollar value will change for everyone and digital is allowing us, Ashutosh's perception of value will be different to Vinita's value. So rather than giving you both one model and trying to sort of force fit you into that sort of normative curve, each of you will get a customized view of what we think you want, what we think your perceptible value is. Is it a voucher? Is it conversion to cash? Is it a physical good that you need? Is it that you don't care and you'd rather just donate it like some tech startups have been doing it to do feeding programs in the country or do tree plantation programs. So every perception is different. Every monetization is different. But can you use technology to unlock that is really what the future is going to be.
Okay, very interesting. Can you use technology? So, Preeti, if, to all the point that Dhruv has mentioned, can we add that analytics bit and show how it can become really a driving force?
So when we talk about customer, we're talking about customer conversations, we're talking about loyalty, we're talking about new customer and having a digital platform. So we need to use technology to have those analytics, right? So for me, there are three characters always whenever I'm thinking of a customer experience in context of technology, when I have to drive a platform for technology. So there is one character is your customer. Second is the team, which is, front-ending them from, on the screen, on the call, anywhere or physically. And then there is a team which is sitting there who's doing all the analytics, right? Deep down analytics, so that there is a right information, right platform available to both the sides. Either it's to the customer or to the people who are, assisting your customers so let's say, for example, today, as Katie mentioned and everybody mentioned, right? And as Ashutosh mentions today, WhatsApp is not a platform which as a wish thing anymore. It's become a necessity. It's become something which we used to have for fun, has become a part of a business, right? As a technology platform. Now, I want to understand as an organization when I'm driving a technology platform, which is the best mode of communication for my customer. It's not what I am providing them. It's about what my customer or my consumer is comfortable with. So there are customers who, because you have different varieties, right? So you will have different generations, different variety, depending on your business type that you are in. Everybody wants to choose the platform that they want to come back to you on. Now, as an organization, I need to, one is give them those different options. Second is, once I'm giving them that option, I have to continuously analyze that which platform is the best preferred platform for my customer, which is the platform which is giving them comfort as well as more information. So like your AI related, right? Once you're system driven, when you're more AI driven, there is more that you can provide to the customer in a short span of time. And then the customer is comfortable. Now, let's say for me, example, as a consumer, I am a loyal customer to multiple brands. And trust me, being in the business that I am in, my heart that comes out, and feel like going and meeting those owners and CEOs and founders, that please give me the platform where I want to reach out to you, and you're not prepared for it. You are giving me options to change my loyalty because you have not realized, you have not analyzed, you have not done your analytics right, that which are the modes that I am comfortable in coming back to you. Okay, so when an organization is deciding for the platform, again, in terms of technology, think about the customers on the modes that you want to give. Think about the people who will be responding to the customer. Are they equipped enough with that particular information? They will be equipped enough with that particular information if your analytics are right. If the organization, the management provides them with their data, provides them with those logistics, and then they will be able to serve better. So it's a whole cycle. You have to take care of all three.
So can I be a devil's advocate and actually disagree with Preeti on this?
Good.
And we've all been agreeing with each other, and मैं थोड़ा बोर हो रहा था तो मैंने कहा चलो मैं disagree. So I'll tell you, Preeti, I slightly disagree, right? I'll tell you what. I think your customer looks to you for two things, right? Value and service excellence, right? Assuming everyone gives you value, everyone according to what they are giving is value. Your value, there might be a value mismatch, and for which you lose customers and they'll go away. I think when it comes to service, right, you can choose which platform you want them to interact with you as long as your service is excellent there. So I'll give you an example. We as an organization have killed email. We don't interact on email. Simple logic, nahi karna. Why? Not for any other reason. We fundamentally believe it's a very painful thing to first sit and write and compose. Imagine like my customer is a shopkeeper who's got two peaks in the day. He's got to take a nap in the middle of the night. He's got to restock at the late in the night. Like there's a very weird time schedule around, and in the middle of it, the guy's writing emails saying this payment didn't come on the right time, or you made a deduction, or some issue the bank has happened. Versus me telling him, don't worry, just say hi to me on WhatsApp and my chatbot will take care of everything else. Right? Now, we've done a dipstick in the market. None of them have experience. These are not Zomato users. These are not Swiggy users. They don't know what a chatbot looks like, right? They don't fundamentally first time engage well enough. The first instinct is they keep looking for the option that allows them to, when you call Airtel and you say 129, it basically connects you to an agent straight away. You can bypass all the IVR, right? People have these tricks on Google written all over the place, how to bypass the Airtel IVR, right? Now, exactly the same thing happens with us. People are like trying to figure out, we have YouTube videos of people saying how to bypass the Bharat Pay chatbot to get to an agent or human interaction, or get them to give you a phone call back. But we are striving on our bet is that our chatbot is so excellent that you don't need to speak to someone. All answers are given to you right up front, right? And we've taken it one step back, right? And I remember, we were discussing this earlier in the week, is the minute you start opening omni-channel, right? You start opening up too many war fronts, and especially in the startup world, you're firefighting every day. You can't possibly open up too many war fronts. So rather than this, the model that we follow is simple. No incidents, and what you were saying exactly, but in a different way. No incidents. Incidents comes, it's self-serve chatbot on the platform that I want you to be, which today, in my experience, is conversational servicing, which is WhatsApp and chatbots, in-app chatbots and WhatsApp purely. But even if you still were to speak to an agent on chat or on a phone call, then that agent has to be able to, the first time around, give you the right resolution. Right. So you give them all the data as you were talking about. And that's when what you were saying, I agree with you, is that the FTR comes in And then if something falls through the cracks here, that's really the true testament to what kind of a product, service, or value you are giving to the customers. So excellence is really the North Star metric you need to have.
Just a point to add.
You didn't
Fine. So just a quick point to add here. I think it would also depend upon the kind of business you are in and the maturity of the business. So for example, if I talk about the food industry, in the food industry, it's a highly emotionally connected product, right? If I am receiving a cold pizza, for example, or the toppings are not correct, I would be pissed off if if somebody asks me to do the complete conversation on chatbot. I want a resolution then and there, right? And especially if this customer is my premium customer, my prime customer, the data says that he has been loyal to my platform, my brand for so many years, have been ordering month on month. He wants a kind of, personal touch in the resolution, right? There, so I think it would depend upon the a customer profile, his affinity to the brand, his loyalty. I would say that we would rather have different kind of personalized solutions depending upon these factors, and not just one single solution, whether it's a new customer or a most loyal customer.
I would absolutely agree with that. I think that's where product excellence also comes in, right?
Yeah.
When you start talking about personas and personalization and fitting it into the right solution for the right person, right? And rather than giving a generic, so what I was talking about, a normative band, right? So if my previous startup was in the insurtech space, right? The problem with insurance was one policy is fit to everyone. One person is a loss maker, one person's a profit maker, and you throw the die and you hope that everyone lands up in a unit positive economic space, right? Versus today the lemonades of the world, the digits, the Accos of the world, what are they doing? Personalized policies. You are this person, your risk factors lie at this rate, and hence your rate is this. And at an individual level, we think you should be unit economic positive, or people like you, which will form in that cluster or cloud, will be unit economic positive, but it's very personalized, right? But that's a function of product excellence, right? If your product, you initially launch a product at a 80th percentile, and then just let it go with it and start building omni-channel support around it, rather than saying I'll get the product to 99th percentile and choose the right channel for this. Any customer who's using a 99th percentile product will also be comfortable using a 99th percentile service product.
Yeah.
Okay, before just 1 second, sorry to interrupt. Just to remind, because there are quite a few people who are also logged in case you'd like to ask questions, please put it down in the Q&A section, and we'll be happy to put your questions to any of the experts here, any of the people who are with us today. So just reminding for that. Yes, Prasad, you were saying
Sorry.
something.
No, I was just saying that, while it started as a conversation to disagreement, I like the agreement that we already have. The agreement underneath that we're having.
He said that he actually didn't disagree.
Exactly. No, actually, what I want to say, that the lines that even Rahul draw, whatever Preeti said and Dhruv said, and I'm sure Vinita and Shashi also been saying, I think one thing that we brought up is actually customer convenience. And second, identifying our customer persona. Like Rahul understood, by my customer personas are very varied. I want to make sure that I target tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities. There could be, very well-educated, digitally savvy customer, or less digitally savvy customer. Like luckily Dhruv kind of really understood the customer segment and they said, this is what I do. But I think one thing is pivoting all of these is we're very clear that we want to deliver that great experience. I think Dhruv, everything that he said, agreed. You don't need to be omni-channel as long as you define what is the experience that you want to deliver to your customer and you stick to that experience. You have a great bot, but what if the bot doesn't solve customers? And the bot should smartly understand, I gave up. I can't answer this customer. Hey, here is the way that you can talk to a human and get your problem solved. That customer will be very happy. I think we call that as a handout in technology. I think maybe I couldn't resist myself. Generally, I don't bring up Zendesk into the concept, but this is something that we've been reading from all our customers globally and locally. And when we talk to all the businesses, and one thing that we've launched something called messaging. So we call messaging. Often people think, oh, is it a social messaging? Is it a WhatsApp messaging? Our way of messaging is actually, just define how a customer and a business should interact. Maybe that interaction in the case of Dhruv starts from a WhatsApp bot, or in the case of Rahul, it starts from a telephone call, or in the case of Preeti, it could be starting as a text message, or in case of something else, can be something else. It doesn't matter. You define how the journeys should be. Our product should scale automatically. Today, WhatsApp is working great. A few months ago, it gave a scare about privacy policy. People are switching to Signal. Can the platform scale? Can a Signal come in? Or maybe they said, oh, we need Telegram. But today's in a B2C era, and Rahul would agree that, do you have an Instagrammer, micro influencer that Vinitha talked about it? These influencers sitting in Instagram. How do you engage those consumers and influencers to still get a conversation going? I think that tees back. If customer has a convenience of connecting with you, a customer believes that he or she gets the best experience that they can deliver. A farmer can get a digitally savvy customer, even though they're not digitally, they get the great experience. I think in a B2B, B2C world, I think we can deliver a great experience. That's my view. But pivot seems to be convenience.
Pivot is like the experience, I would say, is personalization and adaptability. Like,
exactly.
How can we really be adaptable? Ashutosh, you're on mute, I think, and I'm talking, so I'm not on mute.
Sorry. I was just going to come to you. So I want to understand, how do brands, so obviously brands have realized the power of digital. How do they ask for a different set of needs and different, maybe specific set of kinds of personas of customers when they want you or when they come for media solutions? And
that's a brilliant question, Ashutosh. Actually, I think one of the panelists talked about cohorts. So, we build audience cohorts, and the cohorts can be defined with so much more refining today. So as we speak, Google is coming with newer tools, YouTube is coming with newer targeting options. For example, connected TV is becoming a very nice way of targeting consumers. So today we have an option of buying media only to reach people who are watching connected TV at their homes. So that was not possible about a few years ago, 2 years ago or so. Similarly, there is something very new that is very, very, very interesting and engaging, which a lot of brands use, which is called conversational messaging. So when you're talking, they pick up those search keywords, and they'll, like, suppose you're talking about like dinner. For example, I think Jubilant could use something like that, maybe already using conversational messaging. I'm sure this is quite common, having sticker packs of a pizza coming. If somebody's talking about a pizza, you have a nice, Domino's written and something nice as a thing. So just being a part of the conversation. Kingfisher has done it, Parley, so many brands have done it. Cadbury does it all the time, McDonald's. And I mean, a lot of these youth brands, because that's part of the conversational messaging that you can be an integral part of. So like I said, it has to be adaptable and personalized. So brands of this kind of, tonality and target audience, which are younger, also require engagement in this way, in natural ways. Then there are some brands which want DIY. Some brands would want content. Some brands would want influencer marketing. So I think at the briefing stage itself, it's a lot of engagement with clients to understand what is the role that digital can play. And of course, beyond the targeting aspect, which I first touched about, which is audience cohorts, which can be cut and diced and sliced in various ways. Apart from, of course, programmatic itself being so popular now, which is nothing but just buying audiences and not, just buying them across, not by vehicle, but just buying audiences. So these are some of the various ways. Yeah.
Okay. So there is a question that has come. The person's not mentioned the name. How to make sure there is consistency of information across all channels? Prasad, would you like to take that?
Love to. I think it's fairly simple. I think irrespective, I think I'll give you a little bit of definition of channels. When you talk about channels, like Dhruv said, it doesn't need to be omni-channel. There's also multi-channel in the market. So there are two words that are commonly used. Now I'll give a very basic difference of these two and answer the question. I think if you have one way of reaching to customer, like businesses and customers are reaching themselves, maybe a telephone line, or the ones that Dhruv said, no email, that could be a second option, or a chatbot that Rahul talked about, a third, so on and so forth. So you have multiple channels, a way of engaging with customers. You are a multi-channel support system that you have built it. But when you tee up all of this and making sure that a customer can reach out to a telephone, to a SMS, to a WhatsApp, to a social messaging, which could be means Twitter, a bot. When a customer can come from any direction and any of the channel of the choice, but if they're not able to get what they need and they switch to other channel, and you as a business can tee up all the information, bring customer profile that the same customer try to do a little bit of knowledge search on my website, and then they've interacted with the bot, they still not got the answer that they need, and now they're actually talking to me. That means you have a customer context. So that means you got to be omni-channel. The short answer is actually, how do you maintain the information across all of this is omni-channel. Second, I think by channels itself, you will not be able to get everything. But some of the customers might be reaching out to you, hey, where is my order? And the order, supply chain, and maybe a delivery is something that you would outsource it to a third party. So are you able to bring the order information into the customer communication? Are you able to bring supplier information, which could be, you could be a B2B2C company. That means you're a marketplace, you have vendors with you and you have a supplier. So, you're able to make sure that you do the business. Are you connected everything? So having a customer context is the number one answer that I can give you. And to get that, it's about being omni-channel. It's about integrating your order management, or what we call a core business applications, including when there is a need, you should be able to reach out to your third-party suppliers, bring them into same conversation. And I think, if whoever the user, I'm more than happy to throw a little bit of sales pitch here. Please contact one of Preeti's team, and they will be able to help you out really how to do this.
We've been doing it successfully across the industries, which is a very valid question. So one is you open up the channels to the customer. Once you open up the channels to the customer, I will just take back on group that we need to choose what we want to give. But to choose what you want to give, you need to profile your customers. You need to know your customer profile. It has to be in connection with your industry. Again, that comes with analytics.
Okay.
Right? You need to do that.
Preeti, I'll add a little bit of question to that, which is a question that has come as well. And I'd like to go to you as well as Vinita for that. The question says, heard one of the panelists say how they use consumer data to reach certain decisions. Isn't it a question of compliance under the new IT law 2019? When someone says that they're using consumers' personal data for business benefits without their prior consent, it raises the larger issue of whether customer has said a yes in some cases, and we don't have a personal data protection law yet in the country, but the larger question of privacy, how is that addressed by brands, and how does technology make it possible?
So I would answer it in stepwise, right? So when somebody has raised a point that we said that we use customer data for analytics, okay? So what we meant by that is that when I am choosing a platform, like Dhruv mentioned, right, that I want to give a bot platform, I want to make my system more AI enabled, I wanted more self-help, then you reach out to my physical help, right? To give that particular platform, I need to know my customer profile. So which are the modes of conversation? So I take, right? I need to, as a consumer, there are many brands that I deal with, they come that, would you like to come through WhatsApp? Would you like us, when I'm not pushing the customer, right? I'm asking their consent and then taking them. There is a difference between taking a consent of the platform that you want to reach out and then analyze that platform that, out of 1,000 customers who have reached out to me today, 500 have reached out to me via WhatsApp, wherein 100 have reached out to me via call. Now that's not touching your personal data, right? Personal profiling comes in when, again, you talk about when you're connecting with the customers on the multiple platforms, how you give them that personal experience. As Katie mentioned, that comes by an integrated environment. It's not, one tool doesn't make it a success. Choosing a tool doesn't changes your customer experience. Adaption of that tool, technology within your organization, and again giving that comfort, and reaching out with that complete information and creating that cycle, that gives the success of the tool. So we are not touching the personal analytics of the customer. We give the personal experience to them by creating an integrated environment, which is after confirming with the customer.
But I'll jump in. And I'll actually I'll give a slightly different answer beyond
differing answer. Please say that.
I would say again disagreeing there.
I'll keep the ethos the same, but I'll always follow Preeti with a slightly different answer.
I have no idea why.
Is people use no, I'm saying use the data. I'm saying we take consent. No one reads the TNC at the start of an app. Please pick up tell me when the last time you read Instagram's TNC or Facebook's TNC, and when they will tell you, oh, our terms and conditions have changed, and it's a blanket email that comes to you, right? But you use the data. the question that comes from that is, did you benefit more from it or did the customer? So so great, Vinita is agreeing with me, fantastic. So did you use it to deliver better value or did you use it? So I give you a very classic example of the industry on the messaging side. We are in the financial services industry. We have to inform the customer of every transaction, every settlement otherwise. So we of course deal with all the vendors in the world who deal with SMS data, right? Now, everyone comes and fights. Literally we fight at 0.1 paisa. That's the rate at which things get negotiated. But you would be surprised. And we have not decided to move vendors. Why? Because we know that there are people who are the benefit comes to us, but our customer is going to get inconvenienced by it. And we've chosen not to participate with certain vendors or certain partners or certain platforms. The question is, when you see this data, when you see information, when you see these heuristics becoming actual personas of people, do you actually deliver value to that customer? Number one. And that speaks deeper to something else. It actually talks about trust. For financial services, everything works on trust. Okay. I'll talk about something that I saw Vijay Shekhar Sharma talk about when I was at Paytm, right? One of the biggest changes we did at Paytm is, any of you fire up your Paytm app right now, the first logo that you see is like a ISI symbol that says trust. India's #1 trusted brand. When anyone who is willing to give you that information wants two things from you: value, and they want to be able to trust you when they're doing that. So the trust is the first thing. And then if the value comes, the trust is reinforced, and vice versa.
Okay, let me go to Vinita there. Vinita, do brands, are they so particular? There's some customers who may be very finicky. Are brands as particular that they are only going to be very particular? Anyone who doesn't want to be part of it are kept away?
So one size doesn't fit all. So there are some brands who who think differently and who are extra cautious, I would say. But largely, I would agree with what Dhruv says. Most brands, if we tell them that, as long as you're giving a better experience to the consumer, we don't need to worry. And one of the things that media planning can play a role in this is that if you are giving a message, then you would put certain frequency caps. So for example, you don't trouble a consumer by talking about the same message, multiple times in a day or 10 times in a week. And so that he just gets bombarded with that, right? So simple tools like that can also be a media planning aspect to it. And I think gone are the days when big data hype was so much like, we just want data and piles of data. Its relevance is more important than just having data. So just let's focus on that, is what most clients like to understand data better and like to use data in the best possible way. Obviously not, going against any laws as such, but yeah, broadly.
Okay, Shashi has a point to make.
Yeah, Shashi's got his hand up. Yes, Shashi.
So in my personal opinion, it's a very gray area. What is a business benefit or a service what you are delivering? Unless the consumer is explicitly consenting for a service to be delivered, in my opinion, it is not correct. Probably we are bordering on a, let me say, borderline, IT law area. Okay, for a simple example I can give you is, I can log into Amazon and make a purchase. Next time when I log in to make a purchase, down I see a lot of recommendations, based on previous purchases I have made. The first question I need to ask is, did I sign up for that? Okay. The second question I think Amazon would ask is, hey, you're on my platform, you did make a purchase. Okay, I thought I can use your purchase history, and I can try to deliver a service. It's a very, very gray and borderline area. In my opinion, I think brands, like serious brands should be concerned about how do they use the customer data. In the name of service delivery, we can actually go a little bit out of hand. For example, Akshay Kalpa has a strict policy. We will never ever use the customer data with us, for any business benefit. So therefore, we don't send them ads. We don't send them anything else. So this is exactly what, you are with us. We are delivering services, and it's a borderline area, in my opinion. That Of course, a lot of agreements can be there in this area.
Exactly. That's what I said. Like, imagine within our panel itself, we'll have different opinions. Each one of us will think differently. So brands also think differently. So this is a very gray area. I agree totally.
Okay.
I think one thing that I want to say, I think we live in a country where we get unsolicited calls every day. Anybody doesn't get it, please raise your hand. You don't get any unsolicited calls in a given day. Did we sign up for, getting those unsolicited calls? Think about, you're sitting in a US or maybe in a different other countries. Do you get so unsolicited calls? No, because it's a lay of the land. I think Ashutosh, you touched upon it. It's a gray area. But again, I love what Vinita as well as Shashi said. You got to use it for the right purpose. You don't take advantage of because there's no law defined. You got to know as a company and a brand, are you trying to take advantage of a situation, or are you trying to use it for a rightfulness for serving a customer? As long as you're conscious, as long as you can instill the trust of what you're doing is right, I think it's good. Look at GDPR. I think all of us know GDPR when it came in a couple of years ago, it took by storm. One of the things that we usually advise, actually, if you can't do anything, just use a GDPR as a lens that, are you GDPR compliant? If you are, I think you're doing a great thing for yourself. When the law comes in, whatever shape and form it comes, it will not be very hugely different from what you've seen. GDPR is one of the toughest law to meet. And if you meet, probably, by now, without having a law in the country, I think you're doing a great job.
Okay, there's a next question coming. If we can take some of those questions, this is specifically for Dhruv. As money has become the most tangible digital product in today's times, do you see a role of bots / conversational AI such as Alexa being leveraged to execute money transactions by your customers? Does it change the customer experience? Dhruv.
So I think any experience to execute a transaction is, as Preeti was putting, should be omni-channel and choice of the consumer, right? But I think when it comes to money, there has to be a certain degree of trust, reliability, and scalability within the platform, right? So you talk about Alexa, saying, hey, Alexa, send 100 rupees to my son's wallet as pocket money, right? How do I validate it? How do I authenticate it? Is there a way that I know it's error-free? However, when you look at something like UPI, right? It's one of the safest methods built. There are countries that are coming and copying it right now. So I think when you look at money / commerce / financial services, right? There are certain right ways of doing it, which lend to trust, which lend to reliability, which lend to safety, both data safety as well as peace of mind, right? And I think the future is moving in that direction. But where I see the future going is purely mobile first. So for example, there is a technology called soft POS, right? You don't no longer need those clunky machines lying in shops. But we are a few years away from that, right? Today, it's all about adoption. So we, as an organization, have machines which, what we call EDCs or POS machines that go out, and we're one of the fastest growing networks in the country. But at some point in time, we also know that we might have to just adopt soft POS, because that's the lay of the land. That's what people prefer, because it's convenient and it is safe, right? But will I be able to do something like have a random machine that can just go tap someone's card and take it? The general acceptability of that in the market will never be there, because people will not trust it. People will stop carrying their cards and so on and so forth. So I think technology will move in line with, as consumer adoption becomes stronger in the form of loyalty and multi-usage, then you will start seeing certain technologies become commonplace. And then the next layer will be built on top of that.
Okay, so we are now closing in on towards the end. So I just wanted to get a sense from maybe some people here. When you're building a good CX platform, because we're talking about the experience economy, what should maybe CIOs or CEOs or CXOs they keep in mind? Preeti, if I can ask you to take that question, please.
Okay, So when we have been dealing with multiple CIOs and CEOs within the organization in different industries, right? You can be a manufacturing, you can be an e-commerce platform, you can be a retail or a media house. It's very, very important that when you're choosing a particular technology, you have to keep multiple things in mind. What's your type of a business? As we mentioned during this whole conversation, every business will have different needs. So if I'm a product company, my ways of connecting with the customers will be different. If I'm a retail, it will be different, right? My profiles of the customers change. The moment I'm fintech, the whole dynamics change for the organization, right? So we have to work with the customer. That's the way we have been working. We need to first understand your business. Then you need to understand what are your compliances. Then you need to understand the profile of your customers. See what's the best fit in platform technically. And of course, everybody, either when you're a startup, there is a lots of budget that plays in the role. When you are a growing organization or you're in exponential growth, it's many organizations choose the platform not because it's cheap or it's expensive, because it's necessity. Instead of creating big teams, we create smarter teams by creating a right platform. Okay, and when we are delivering the right platforms to the customer. So all these factors, your business type, your consumer behavior, everything that you're carrying as a legacy, with your customer loyalty chain that you're built up. And then it is not just your customer loyalty. To deliver that customer loyalty, which are your other key pointers in Katie in between had picked this up, right? Because it's about when I have to converse with my customer, at times I have to answer the questions to the customer, which are dependent on different other channels or internal points within the organization or outside the organization. They play again a very important role when you're choosing the technology. So that's where, we say that when you're choosing the platform, don't choose just the tool. Choose the solution which is solving your business problem, accelerating your business, giving you smarter teams, giving you a better ROI. So don't look at the cost, it's a need as right. So if I'm a 2-year-old organization, which is completely automated, and then I'm able to handle a bigger business, I don't see the need, either you're a mid-size or an enterprise, to still think about it, that is it a need versus.
Got it. Okay, let's just get Rahul. Rahul, for someone, and I'm sure all of us here and people who are listening, they would have experienced some product from Jubilant at a different point. The point that Preeti made, does it resonate? And how do companies raise the bar and take it to the next level? How does a company like yours see it?
See, absolutely. I think Preeti was bang on. I would add to Preeti and say that I think we need to change the mindset of the organization, and the whole thinking should be working backward from the customer. The CIOs cannot restrict themselves to, we have to improve the infrastructure, or we have to make the systems more efficient. We have to make, microservices, so on and so forth. I mean, that is something which is given, but everybody in the organization has to start thinking, has to empathize to the customer. Yeah. It's not only the product force or the guest services team or the customer success team, which will talk about the customer. Unless the whole organization feels about it, you will not be able to kind of develop that, that DNA of, whatever systems, whatever digital solutions we need to bring. It has to solve customer pain point. Most important thing is emotionally connect with the customer and understand what he needs. So there is a possibility that, customer is not outspoken about the need. Probably we have to go and talk to him and understand his behavior. So that is where, whenever we do product development, we do a heavy usability testing, just to bring customer into that product development phase and ask him whether you like this product or not before I go and launch in the market. Yeah. And I take that feedback very seriously, incorporate that, their feedback and improve upon it, and then launch the first version. So I think it's all about, and it's actually the most difficult also to change the mindset of a big organization and, make it work backward from the customer. So see, in nutshell, if people say that, okay, we want to do this in the organization, say the finance team is saying something or the marketing team is saying something, I think the one question that we should ask is how it is going to benefit the customer. So anything that you do in the organization should, at the end of the day, benefit the customer directly or indirectly, is, my opinion.
Okay, so that well, we've almost run out of time. Maybe Shashi Kumar, since you've spoken slightly lesser, can I, from that the story that you mentioned about the farmers, that resonates with me because it just shows how deep it can go, and even to people who've traditionally been slightly on the edge of all of this, digital evangelizing that's happening. How can the bar be raised for that set of people?
See, I think very important question. There is two ways of looking at what somebody wants. There is something which is implicit, which is not told. There is something which is explicit, which is actually mentioned. Hey, I want this. So the implicit requirements of, let me say, the farmer, would the farmer go and tell you, I need a cow management system, herd management system? You would never tell. So, but the way we need to really understand, okay, this is in what way, if we add, this element into his life, in what way it can change. So it requires a lot of dipstick. I think that's what some of the panelists are saying. Go and do a dipstick and say it actually adds value to the farmer's life. It's very, very important. And second aspect is when an implicit requirement is assumed, and we do something about that. Now, is it actually delivering the value, or it is actually satisfying your requirement, not the end person's requirement? So that needs to be really, really validated. That's what the end user testing, end user validation, Rahul was talking of. So it's very, very important that these aspects are kept in mind. I think that's it from my side, Ashutosh.
Okay, thank you so much. So we've almost run out of time. I think just enough time for maybe some closing remarks by Preeti.
I would first thanks to you, Ashutosh. Really, you did this all well. You Dhruv disagreed with me multiple times, but I never realized that he ever disagreed. Katie, what do you say? I think he always agreed, but it's just the way you look at it, right? So
that's how you drive the spirit of the conversation.
And I loved it, and I totally loved it. And we would like to have it offline. And all those visitors who have taken out time and who have participated with us and in this conversation, please come back with your questions. We'll be happy to take them. And yes, there have been certain points which have come as a gray point in this whole conversation. And I would be happy to answer those questions, especially when the questions were raised in the technology. So technology should benefit business. Technology should benefit consumers. Technology has an advantage. Technology comes with its own disadvantage, right? So we make those choices. It's the business format. It's the kind of business that you are in. I don't go and advise customers that you create the CX platform so that you have that data and you can sit on it and have that analytics. And yeah, so why that business needs those kind of analytics is so they can give a better experience to you. I have been a consumer myself. I don't want to go to the same platform and start from scratch every time. I want the system, if I'm a loyal customer of a particular brand, particular platform, or a brand, I want the system to understand me up to a certain level when I am coming to you. That's what is analytics. That's the kind of analytics we are talking about. We're not talking about getting into the personal thing and selling the data. I mean, some businesses are doing it. We're not interested in doing that. We don't suggest that. We don't use such platforms to make that statements. We use the customer experience so that you come back to me. We want to give the better agent experience to the people who are serving so that they are equipped with that information to help the consumers better. We want to give the analytics to my management or the teams which are actually working on it, so they are making right decisions. I open up a WhatsApp channel wherein my business has a compliance it doesn't allow. So how do I make those decisions? The decisions just won't come as an individual. The decisions have to be coming on certain facts. Those facts come with this analytics. And that's what you need to have. A right technology platform. You need to have right integrated platforms within the business to deliver it end to end, to track it end to end, to have that away from your human dependency, but I'm not saying that we will stop working. I don't want to look or think about the world where we are completely AI and we don't need human. It's a suffocating world. But at the same time, when I'm running a business, I don't want to be, dependent on human for my business. I want that information, data, approach, everything to be controlled, and then equip my human to serve my customers and grow the business. That's the way I look at it when I talk about technology.
Okay, thank you so much, Preeti, for that closing remark as well. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us on this very special conversation, CX Conversations, navigating today's challenges. Well, for now, it's a wrap, but this is something we're going to be hearing again and again about. And some of those brands, who we interact with every day, they would want to learn from our experiences as we spoke about. And of course, we'll also be richer with our conversations and richer with our experiences around the brand. Thank you so much for being with us and watching.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Ashutosh.